Welcome back to 4-Wheel Drive Adventure Crew. My name is Voss, and today I just want to show you guys around my 2000 Jeep Cherokee. There's an old video about it that I did 2 years ago when it was on 35s, and it was just a basic kind of walk around of it. The link should be right about there, and you can check that video out. Since then, my Jeep changed quite a bit. Now it's on the Rubicon Axles. The front axle is actually a 2020 Gladiator Rubicon Axle. So as far as I scouted the internet, I have not found another XJ that is currently running with the Gladiator axle, which kind of puts my Jeep sort of one of those fancy ones that not everybody has it. So, but let me just show you around on the front what we got, and then we'll go around everything else, kind of show you what changed since the last time I did the walk around on this Jeep. So on the front, I have a old bumper that I got when I got my Jeep. All it is a 2x2 3/16 thickness tube bumper that somebody built. I just got it from a friend, and this has been trusty bumper for as long as I had the Jeep, because it reaches farther down supports than just the 3 factory bolts. And I was able to fit my X-Bull 13,000 pound winch, and it has a synthetic rope, and that's basically it. I'm running a slim light bar. I used to have a big light bar, and I'm trying to keep as much area as possible open for the Jeep to cool down, because these things do run hot. And I'm running a oil cooler for the engine, a transmission cooler for the transmission, and a big power steering cooler, so that way it stays as cool as it can be. And then what we did when we put the 37-inch tires and everything else, I had to build a custom fender flares to fit the bigger tires, because the axle was pushed forward 2 inches to give myself clearance away from hitting the body on the inside. So we did quarter panel armor, and we welded a fender flare straight to it, so that way it's as smooth as it can be all the way around. And the fender flares and the fenders and the support are really sturdy. I can bump it into rocks and not worry about damaging anything. As far as the axle goes, we're running a 2020 Gladiator Rubicon axle with electric locker, and axle disconnect is still intact, and I'm kind of keeping that for be able to use 2 low options, so I can disconnect the front axle shaft, and I could put it in 4 low on the transfer case and be able to use only a rear wheel low. So when I go up hills on the smooth roads where I don't really need 4x4, it's a lot easier on the transmission and everything to just go into two-wheel drive basically. And I did build custom hydro assist. I used a factory box and I tapped it for hydro, and we're using a Wolverine 6-inch rod shaft, and we're using the tractor supply lines that are covered so they don't get scratched or anything like that. The steering is all factory 2020 Gladiator factory steering, and the only thing we had to modify is the drag link to make it shorter, because Gladiator is a little bit different than XJs. All the link mounts are all factory. They're actually in the exact same spots for XJs and Gladiators. So all the links were able to hook up factory locations, no problem. The only thing we had to re-weld is the coil buckets, and we did welded Arctic truss on the axle, because we know these axles have flaws where they can break in the middle because of too many cast to tube back to cast going there with the disconnect and everything. And I actually put sway bar back onto the Jeep because it's a little bit easier to drive when you have the sway bar on the windy roads. And we do a lot of traveling to where we go far distance on the highway before we can get to certain trails, and it's just a lot easier to drive with sway bars on. On my previous axle, I couldn't run sway bars because of the way the steering was and everything. It was too much work to build brackets for the sway bar, so I didn't run sway bars before. But now that I do have room, I just put them back, and for me it doesn't matter if I have it on or off, but for the windy roads a lot easier when you have the sway bar, so you can go kind of, you know, quick around the corners and stuff. The rear axle is out of a 2011 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon with the electric locker, and the front and rear I am running 538 gears and factory Rubicon lockers. I did install Arctic truss on the rear of the JK axle, and I deleted all JK mounts that they come with, and I installed leaf spring purchase, so that way I can it has actually 3 holes, you can move it up and down, and I moved it as far back as I can, which is 1 inch, to give myself a little bit clearance on the body. I installed the shocks down at the same level as the axle, so I have nothing hanging down here, and the shocks are Monroe load leveling shocks with the coil over, which just basically when you fully load it, it gives you extra 1,000 pounds of load capacity before it starts sagging. And I like these because they're keeping the back of the Jeep nice and rigid and not too flimsy on the rocks and fast whoops when we drive through them in the desert. So the rock sliders are just like I had them for about 2 years now. It is a quarter wall 2x2 main rock slider, the main tube, and the step is out of 1.5 inch 180 wall tube. I make it as a step, and then I put some anti-slip little rubber pieces on here, so when you get out of the car when it's wet or muddy, you're not gonna slip and fall. So, and then the front was the whole front fender flare slash armor is one piece with the fender flare. The rear, we had to cut the body out and weld this in permanently because there's no way to build this with the quarter panel armor to where it's gonna be good. And the rear axle is pushed back 1 inch to be able to clear the body as much as possible at the full stuff. So when it completely flexes out, it's touching smooth areas, so you're not going to damage your tires flexing out and trying to cut it on any kind of a joints, seams, or anything like that. And the rear is completely basically protected by 1/8 plate steel armors all the way to the bottom, and the rear bumper is built out of a 3/16 tube. And that concludes pretty much the whole side for the vehicle now. And around the back, I'm still running the same lower portion of my bumper from the previous video, which is a 4x6 tube, 3/16 wall, and we built in the lights, and the hitch receiver is attached underneath, so the bumper slides inside your frame rails, and the hitch receiver is bolted through into the bumper brackets, so it's basically sandwiching the body in between to where this is as strong as it's gonna be for this unibody design. The gate swings out easily, and this is basically the portion of the bumper. The upper portion I had to replace because of the 37-inch tire for the spare. I wanted to make sure that it's gonna fit in there, and my previous swing out was not would not be able to fit that in there. So I installed a Rotopax on the back of my swing out on the inside, and a shovel for when we go snow recoveries, and a full spare 37-inch tire on the back swing out. And on the outside of the swing out, I have my high jack lift jack. On the inside of the Jeep, I have everything custom made little drawer that comes out smooth and easy. So that way I don't have to, if I put stuff on the top shelf, I don't have to worry about not being able to get to this stuff. So we put these crates, they're bolted to the slide out, and all my necessities for kitchen or anything else, I can change this at any time depending on the trip. So if we go with the smaller group and I need to carry more stuff, I can load more stuff. If we're going with the bigger group and we spread our stuff that we need to carry between multiple vehicles, it's a lot easier to just pull stuff out, put what you need to carry, because normally if we have the black Jeep going with us, Tanya has all the kitchen supplies and the fridge. When she's not, then I carry some of the kitchen stuff that I need for certain trips. So if we're going camping gear will be on top, kitchen will be on the bottom. If it's a day trip, I usually empty out all the camping gear and just keep the necessities that I need in here. And one other thing is I do have a maxi-track compressor installed in the back instead of my V-Airs that I used to have in there. The V-Airs were great, but this maxi-track dual piston compressor is a beast. I'm only running a 2-gallon tank underneath the body right above the rear axle. And with that one 2-gallon tank and this big compressor, I can fill my 37-inch tires from 5 psi to 30 psi in under 12 minutes. So this compressor is a massive flow through it, but it's very compact. It's only taking up a small amount of room in the trunk, which that's really good because it's good compressor, big flow, and small space that it needs to fit. So, and that's why I have it mounted in there. On top I have my maxi-track bags with all the recovery gear that I need, and I have my booba rope, my snatch blocks, tree saver, and anything else I need, soft shackles, metal hard shackles. I have everything in the top shelf, and this can be moved around anywhere I want. So, and I did close off the back wall between the passenger and the trunk, so I can actually fill this up more, because my rear tire is blocking pretty much the whole window. There's no point for a rear view mirror for me anymore, so that's why I just blocked it off, so I can have more storage on the inside, and I can put more stuff in the back of the trunk and not worry about stuff falling over when we're going on the bumpy roads. The suspension that I have on this Jeep, it is pretty much all custom built, assembled. We custom built the cross member that holds the transmission and the links, and I did build a 3-link front suspension. We're using Johnny joints on the lower ones and the Heim joint on the upper one, and I had the suspension for 2 years, and so far I like it. I used to have Heim joints on the lower links, and I did not like the way Heim joints wear out really quick on just regular driving. And when you do a lot of driving before you get to the trails, you want your parts to last longer. And so far, Johnny joint, it's greasable. I usually check my grease in there after 2-3 trips, and if we do a lot of water or snow, I do check it more often, make sure that I have pushed any water out of the joint so it does not destroy the joint itself. The whole Jeep, we welded the frame stiffener all the way across, and I got that from Rough Stuff. And up to wheels and tires. So I'm running a Gladiator, factory Gladiator non-Rubicon rims. They're 17-inch, and you can buy these like 20 bucks a piece. Everybody swaps them out right away as soon as they get the Jeeps. And for me, it's good because I want to keep my axle as narrow as possible for the scrub radius, and I don't want my wheels sticking out way too far outside the Jeep. And for the tires, I am running a BF Goodrich KO2s, and they are load E, so they're a little bit stiff. There's 8 plies, and they're a little bit stiff for my weight of the vehicle, but it gives me a nice peace of mind when I go on the rocks, and I know I'm not going to puncture a sidewall easily with these tires. And this is my 4th set of BF Goodrich KO2s. For this vehicle, I think it's one of the better tires to have. If you have a heavier vehicle like a Dodge Ram, they do not last long on underneath that. So, but I'm running factory brakes, which are, I think, 330 millimeter rotors, which with 17-inch rim you can't even put a finger in between the caliper and the rim with the 17-inch. And that's pretty much it on the suspension side. Let me show you some of the stuff inside. Moving on to the inside of the Jeep, I'm running pretty much everything stock. The only thing I did is I deleted the stereo and I installed gauges inside here. I have a transmission temperature, air to fuel ratio, and engine oil temperature. I am running a tablet here for all the vitals, because these gauges here with like temperature, they don't work that well, because if gauge on the dash shows that you are at 210, usually on the digital one, which is what the ECU actually sees, is around 220 or higher. But on that, everything else is stock the way XJs are. The only thing is I added a center console from a Silverado truck that gives me a place to mount my radio. I have the little dome lights and storage for sunglasses and stuff. But on that, everything is XJ stock. And on the rear, I have the back wall made out of a piece of plywood. And then I added this storage bag compartment to where I can store extra stuff on the back wall, and it's not really in the way for the kids when they're sitting in the back seat. It's not really getting in their way, and that gives me quick to reach some of the essential tools that I need. In the big bag, I have my first aid kit, some towels, zip ties, and starting fluid, and all kinds of other stuff that I would need real quick without searching through the bags of tools and stuff. And I have a roof rack on this Jeep that came off of one of the other XJs that I had working on, and it's a basic 1/2-inch square tube, just basic basket on top, but I just have roof rack just for extra storage when we're going on trips. I can throw some chairs in there, chainsaw, max tracks, or whatever else I need on the roof rack. Under the hood of the Jeep, I am running pretty much everything stock. I have 2 batteries that are connected parallel, and they're just hooked up all the time. So I have 2 deep cycles, and I used to use a little switch that would switch them back and forth, but that just got annoying. When one battery dies, then I can't really turn on the other one, and it was just annoying. But I don't run any big fridges or anything in there, and 2 batteries in there is just good for, I can keep the lights on and everything for a long time before the car dies on the battery. The other thing is I added is hood vents, and I installed small little fans. The fans are wired up together through a big relay with the front electric fan, and when that fan kicks in, those kick on, and it just basically pushes all the hot air out of the engine bay and out the way, so the engine bay stays cooler for better performance. So this will conclude my little walk around of this Jeep. If you have any questions, submit them down below in the comments, and we'll see you guys out there on the trails. Have fun.